It's always good to be with the Tucson Association of Realtors. I feel like I say this all the time, but I really do feel like I should just up and move to Arizona and be done with all of this, and just come and hang out with you guys. We're going to do a bit of a continuation talk today. I want to talk about the future of real estate, and I want to specifically as it relates to technology, but I want to talk about it in a much broader spectrum and bring you up to date on the three pieces of technology that I think are critical to what's happening with the future of technology. So I'm going to start my presentation in a second, but I wanted to be able to at least look at the screen for a while, because I know when I start this, I'm not going to be able to see you all, and I'm not going to be able to see the chat. So thank you for giving up some of your time today. Thank you. I've watched some of the chat on the other sessions. Thank you for fighting through the technical difficulties, and I'll tie that all together with you at the end of the presentation. So let me share my screen and get this thing started. So I want to talk about the elephant that's sort of in the room in every presentation that I give over the last 6 months, and that's that there was no possible way. We knew that there was a potential of a global pandemic. We've known it for a long time. Pandemics have happened throughout the entirety of human history. They exist, but they're somewhat unpredictable. We can sort of plan how we might respond to them, but we never know exactly how we're going to respond to them until a pandemic comes. And in this case, there's a really unique thing happening as a result of this pandemic that has a direct impact on innovation and technology. But I want to make certain we all understand, when we're talking about the future, what things we can predict, what things we can't predict, and what impact our predictions have on that future. So markets and viruses are similar in one specific way. They're both what are known as level 2 chaotic systems. So what are the different chaotic systems? Well, a level 1 chaotic system is like the weather. The weather is also incredibly unpredictable. But unlike markets and viruses, our predictions have absolutely no impact on weather. If I predict tomorrow that it's going to be sunny, my prediction of it being sunny or it raining has no impact on what happens to the weather. If I predict that a hurricane is going to have a trajectory that takes it into the Gulf of Mexico to land smack dab on New Orleans, my prediction has absolutely no impact on that system. The chaotic system acts independently of my predictions. But markets and viruses are different. Talk about the virus for a second. Our actions and our predictions about it, the prediction that certain things are going to happen and the actions we take alter the course of what happens as a result of that virus. And the same thing's true of markets. And when we're talking about real estate as a market and the impact that technology might have on it, we need to remember that our predictions about it change what those predictions might look like. I remember the famous Lions Over the Hill presentation that was done by an NAR president years ago about the potential cataclysmic impact of the internet and what might be happening. But his presentation changed how that technological advancement impacted the real estate industry. We're able to take our predictions and make an impact on the direction that technology might change us. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is going to seem a little scary, and honestly, it's scary to me too. As the years have gone on, as I've continued to update this presentation and bring new pieces of these technologies to the forefront, nothing's slowing down. Nothing about what I thought would be happening 2 years ago has changed. The only thing that's changed in the last 6 months is this specific really unique experience that we're all having with technology. Think about what's happening right now. And I realize that the organizers are struggling with the excelevents.com platform. But we've all been forced onto these platforms, whether it's Zoom or some other virtual meeting space. It's not just the realtor community. It's not just business people who've had to go to these technologies in order to communicate. It's the consumer as well, not just with businesses, not just in how they, but in how they're communicating with family members. And the result of this is the pandemic itself is like an accelerator. It forces us to come to grips with our mortality, with loss, with even the potential of the loss of job. And as a result, I think it's going to be bringing about a bit of creativity. In fact, an even stronger bit of creativity. Because if I'm now all of a sudden faced with the reality that I worked and worked and worked and worked, and all of that can be stopped, can be taken away from me in a moment, I'm more inclined to say, you know what, I'm going to go do what I've always wanted to do. I'm going to take this idea that I had and I'm going to go run with it. And I think that's going to be what happens on the back end of this, and is happening now with the companies that I'm talking to and the entrepreneurs that I'm talking to inside of this pandemic. And it's also a magnifier. Those trends, those things that we saw happening prior to the pandemic, the stuff that was real, the stuff that was moving in what I would say was the right direction, have been magnified. Those things that were moving in the wrong direction, they've been cast aside, because it is an accelerator of both good and bad. It exposes the cracks, but it also exposes the light shining through the cracks. And so what we were seeing prior to this pandemic was a shift and a recognition of the fact that these technology startups who were given millions and millions and millions of dollars. I like to use Zillow as an example simply because it's one that everyone knows. This massive giant, there was a lot of fear around what would happen to the industry as a result of what Zillow was doing, and the Zestimate and all of that stuff. The reality of Zillow, though, is while they bring in a lot of money and they've been invested in at a very high level, and what I'm about to say is not a comment on whether those investments are good or not good, they've yet to make a profit, ever. Not at any time, not in any quarter. Zillow's never made a profit. And so the reality, as expressed by Natalia Karyaneva, who's CEO of one of the Second Century Ventures NAR Reach companies from last year, Proppy, she wrote in the Forbes article last year that currently a prop tech startup in the residential space can only make money if it turns into one of the following market participants that charge the most in the transaction fees: a mortgage provider, a real estate brokerage, or an escrow and title company. And what we've seen is that the movement, Zillow now moving to be actually a broker in this space, is consistent with what we've seen. And there's been an acceleration of that movement by the companies who were seen as being disruptive. But what it's not done is change the direction of the flow of money. And so the U.S. housing market is a massive driver of gross domestic product. $1.7 trillion worth of sales on average over the last few years. So that means there's an estimated $170 billion worth of transaction fees. And so what the investment community is seeing, what they're seeing on the real estate technology side of that equation, is that there is transaction automation potential of close to $100 billion, which means that the back-end processes, those, you think about where do the problems occur? When I look at it, even from the consumer, I look at my past home sales, everything seems to go fairly predictably, right up until the moment that a contract gets signed. And I know that when I talk to my realtor friends, the same is true today as it was 15 years ago when I bought this house. The vast majority of the issues relative to communication, friction, problems occur from the moment the contract gets signed to the moment you close on that and you go to move into the house. And so those back end processes are the ones that the greatest opportunity sits for real estate technology. It's also At Second Century Ventures, for those of you who don't know, I'm entrepreneur in residence with Second Century Ventures. We are the venture capital arm of the National Association of Realtors. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of the National Association of Realtors. And so one of the mandates that we have is that when we're filtering for the technologies that we include either in the investment portfolio directly at Second Century Ventures or in the NAR Reach Accelerator class every year, is these technologies cannot be technologies that are looking to remove the realtor from the center of the transaction. And while some might see that as a limiting factor, I see it as a creative constraint that's necessary and okay, because there isn't anyone on our team who actually believes that the realtor should be unseated from the center of the transaction. And so it allows us to focus very, very, very specifically on those things that we believe are going to benefit the members, and also make certain that we're being consistent with these trends that we're seeing in moves toward automation of the back end of the transaction, because it's 10 times bigger than what's been addressed so far on the front end of the transaction, on the marketing side, on the search side. So automation, to me, is the only tech trend to watch. It's been the only tech trend to watch for the last 2 years. And I don't believe that's going to change anytime soon, because there is so much opportunity available to remove steps and processes and friction from the back end of the transaction that we're going to be seeing this trend progress forward faster as a result of this pandemic. And so when I say automated, what I don't mean is no realtor. The win is in removing costs and friction. The realtor's job is to understand client needs and to utilize these technologies in ways that help improve the experience for the consumer and create the kinds of relationships that ensure that that business is going to continue for years to come as a result of the wins that occur from using those technologies. And so there are 3 basic tech revolutions that are going to impact the automation of literally everything. Now, I'm going to be speaking both in general and specific to real estate technology. For those of you who perhaps have never heard me give a presentation before and thought you were going to come here and get somebody who's going to show you the latest app that you can use, that's not me. What I want to do is wake you up to where technology is headed. Sometimes 10, 15 years out in the future, and sometimes the things that are happening on the edges of real estate or on the outside of real estate that I believe are going to work their way into real estate and dramatically impact how we do the job. So the first thing, artificial intelligence. And I've been saying this for years. I'm going to show you a chart that I've used for years in presentations, and I'm going to keep pounding this into people's heads until everyone understands that this isn't a fad. It's not a trend. It's not. This is the way the world is going to work. It is the power behind almost every single piece of new technology that's coming out, and it is increasingly inserting itself into our everyday life in ways that we cannot even see. And so this trend, this notion, this all of a sudden, it feels like artificial intelligence came onto the scene. But all of the theories, all of the ideas about how to make a computer act more like a human, how to make a computer's brain as fast and as smart as our brain, these things have been being worked on since the 1950s. I read an article, and I wish I had included one of the quotes from it, but someone finally proved a theory from the 1950s last year for one reason and one reason only. It was because of the available computing speed. There wasn't a computer fast enough to prove out the model or to do the things that were necessary. And so when you look at this, in 2012, one of the most significant things happened, and it happened as a result of NVIDIA putting out a graphics processor chip that allowed the processing speed to do equations in ways that had never been possible before, faster than had ever been possible. And when you look at computing speed on a linear scale across time and the predictions about what's going to happen, this is startling to me. And so artificial intelligence professionals, when they talk about AI systems and compute usage, meaning speed of systems based on petaflop second days, that's how they measure this. They're looking at speeds that can't even be defined by words that you and I use on a regular basis. They see two distinct eras of compute usage. There's the era from 1960 with the beginning of perceptron until 2012 with the release of AlexNet as the first era. From AlexNet to AlphaGo Zero is the modern era. And the modern era really is just these last 8 years. But here's the thing that's happened. Compute increase, there's been a 300,000 times increase in compute capabilities from 2012 to AlphaGo Zero in 2018. We were existing in this space, moving along Moore's law, where this compute speed was fairly linear, doubling every 2 years, and then bam, all of a sudden, it goes to 3.4 months, doubling. And this becomes exponential at this point, which is why this curve is going to look like this. And so we're seeing this dramatic increase in computer speed, and it is going to intensify. It itself is going to magnify the pace at which change comes in the artificial intelligence community and what is possible. And so it's important to understand all of this is just math. It's really, really complex math, but it's still just math. But the more complex this math is, the more access to data, the larger volumes of data that are required to prove out the models and to do the training and to make the predictions that are possible as a result of these AIs, the more computer speed needs to be increased. But we're sitting today at a time in history where these things are now being introduced into the products that, and I've been using some of these products for 20 years, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. Adobe is basically saying they see the world we live in now as an AI first world that's coming, meaning they want to use intelligent assistants inside of the software to do the mundane tasks that actually get in the way of creativity. So for example, I've been using Photoshop since pre-beta, since before Photoshop was launched, a long time, because I'm old. When I wanted to edit in a new sky into an image, I would have to sit and painstakingly mask that sky. Today, artificial intelligence recognizes it almost instantly, the edge between the sky. It recognizes the light in the image and what needs to change about that light. If I wanted to edit a human's face, you'd have to mask the eyes, mask the eyebrows, mask the hair, mask the lips, mask every single element of that face before you could start doing the creative work. I'm going to show you a couple of photo pieces of software right now that have just come out in the last, well, since the pandemic started, using artificial intelligence to do things that used to take hours and hours and hours to get to. The first is in a program called Luminar 4. And what you're going to see is this sky replacement, it understands it. It's actually replacing this sky almost instantaneously in real time. And it's relighting the scene based upon its understanding of the coloring of that. Again, happening in real time. When it comes to faces, it has some really simple facial recognition that allows you to take and edit a face and make it look completely retouched in seconds. There's almost no work involved in this. This is what Adobe's talking about when they're talking about intelligent assistants. And this is an inexpensive product. It's $99. If you go a little bit more expensive, you can get to systems like this, where the facial recognition happens in a matter of seconds, and the tools that you're capable of using to edit are literally just sliders. You no longer have to have the professional editing skills to go in and make these changes. You can do this by simply taking a look at what's happening in real time on the screen. The math involved in doing this is crazy. It is absolutely ludicrous what's happening inside of the computer. Not possible to see what's happening in real time the way we're seeing it now, and to make assessments and judgments based on our ability to simply move a couple of slider arounds. It's magical. It's one of the famous quotes. Really good technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think that's where we sit. It's magical, it's scary, it's awesome. And so all of this will be applied to real estate as well. One of the companies that I work with, ImmoViewer, has a proprietary process for understanding how to understand spatial measurements from inside of consumer grade 360 cameras. Meaning, if I've got an inexpensive Ricoh camera and I take a picture inside of a room, ImmoViewer can understand that room, and as a result of that, they can create a floor plan. We were arguing internally about what was the relevance and the importance of the camera height in the equation. And one of the scientists on the team sent me minutes later a handwritten equation. And trust me, I have no idea how to read this. I'm so far removed from this and what I learned in high school. I have no idea what this says. But I use it as an illustration of the kind of math that's required and the intensity of the math that's required to very easily get to something like this by simply setting a camera in the middle of each of these rooms. I shot my neighbor's house for a demonstration for another product that we've introduced into the market that's being used in the home inspection and the restoration industry. It's a 2,700 square foot house. It took me 9 minutes and 23 seconds to shoot it using a Ricoh Theta camera, and it produced the floor plan overnight accurately. See, this is where we're sitting. We're sitting in a world where almost anything can be automated. And another one of the companies that's in this year's class, I'm excited about what they're doing as well. It's a company called Punch List. And what they do is, if you upload a home inspection report, it automates the reading of that home inspection report into an online tool that allows you to get an estimate on repairs. They also provide those repairs. But the automation part of it is, we understand that home inspection report. We're having the computer go through, read it, pull out all of the details of what needs to take place and what needs to be fixed, and returning back a full estimate in less than 24 hours. To me, that's also magical. So automation, the way that we're going to be utilizing artificial intelligence in helping us get to solutions that need to be gotten to in order to streamline those back-end processes, that is happening today. It's happening now. It's only going to get faster. It's only going to get better. The second trend, talked about this for years as well, and I'm going to keep pounding on it until people wake up to its potential, is virtualization. We are going to walk into distant places from our couch and visit worlds that don't actually exist. And quite frankly, my children are going to expect this. It was one of those awakening moments for me, and it happens almost daily in my house. When I walk out onto the couch after school is over, my son is sitting on the couch and he's playing a computer game. He's got his headset on. He's having a conversation with his friends. They're engaging inside of a virtual war. They're teaming up together. It doesn't matter whether it's a piece of sophisticated graphic like this one on the screen or whether it's Minecraft. And the conversations they have about it are no different than the conversations they have if they had gone together to a basketball game or a football game. They're talking about the activities that happened in that space. That space to them is as real as the physical world. They don't view it any differently. I sit and listen to these conversations, and I have a hard time relating to it. That's my personal age issue. But when I sit back and think about how I used to spend my time, you know, I could spend 5 hours watching a college football game on television, or multiple college football games on television. My kids sometimes spend the same amount of time, only they're interacting with other people. They're engaging, and their actions actually have an impact on what's happening on that screen. This is reality for them, and they're going to expect more of that. And what's cool is we're going to get systems that are going to blow our minds, that are combining what we'll call it mixed reality. It's this combination of virtual reality and augmented reality, where you're in a space that doesn't exist. So virtual reality is you immersing yourself in a space that doesn't exist, but the objects in the real world aren't there with you. Augmented reality is you looking through a lens and having information or other things layered over top of what you're seeing in the real world. Mixed reality is I've got objects in the real world and objects in a virtual world interacting together. Crazy stuff. And I added this video last night. I've been following Varjo for a while. They're an industrial mixed reality company, but they put forth a demo in the real estate space that I think is going to have application, obviously, first on the new home side, especially as it relates to how do I pick elements of a new home when I'm choosing cabinets or flooring? How am I going to do that in a way that really allows me to understand what this is going to look like? To me, this next demo, as rudimentary as it is as clear an indication of what mixed reality might look like for the real estate industry as I've ever seen. See, I find that mind-blowing, and I'm hoping that as you watch that, you can let your mind wander a little bit to what the potential is of mixed reality. But we can take a step back. You don't have to go to the mind-bending, mind-boggling edge of this technology to understand its benefits. And so we have imaging technology available to us today at prices that are reasonable by any estimation. You can buy a 360 camera, a decent 360 camera today for $400. You can buy an 8K 360 video camera for $699, $899. This technology is now, it's here. It should be more ubiquitous than it is. I don't believe any imaging technology has ever been more perfectly suited for real estate. And I don't believe any imaging technology has been more universally not taken advantage of by real estate. And so I've shown this before. I'll say it again. This is the D2 Max. There are several cameras now that shoot 8K 360 video. This is what happens when you stop that video and simply pan around the room. The amount of detail that's available from a video, the ability now to walk through a home and shoot a 360 video where you're not paying attention to the camera. The camera is capturing literally everything in that room. The ability then to utilize that in a live scenario where people can ask you questions back and forth virtually. Yes, is that a marketing opportunity? 100%. It's also an efficiency opportunity. It's also a filtering opportunity. There are so many different ways to utilize this technology that, unfortunately, I think the industry is stuck on, I don't need it to sell a house. It doesn't sell any more homes. but it does provide the opportunity, and the pandemic has helped some people realize that there is an efficiency involved in being able, if I've got the inventory of it, if I've got immersive tours of the homes that I have for sale and access to immersive tools for homes that I have for sale, I can use that as an initial filter for people who are wanting to look at houses. Hop on a Zoom meeting, share the tours with them, go through them with them, where they ask questions as we're walking through the house. And then after we do that first walkthrough, go see those houses for real. And that's exactly what the consumer wants. And we, after all of these years and all of the presentations and all of the data and all of the surveys, we're still not doing it. Even in the midst of the pandemic, we're still not doing it. 84% want a tour prior, less than 6% of listings on average have it. This morning in Tucson, if you go to realtor.com and filter by 3D virtual tour, it'll show you that there are 18%. That's not even close. Go through and click on those tours and count the ones that are actually immersive tours, not slideshows, not a repurposing of the photos that you took, but an actual immersive tour. It's roughly about 5%. Today, 95% of the homes do not have this as an opportunity. 84% of consumers want it. At some point, this is going to have to take hold. And if not for marketing reasons, then let's think about it for all of the other potential benefits that might be there. Not just the ability to use it as a filter. We talk about realtor safety all the time. How do we improve realtor safety? How do we improve realtor safety? Well, how about not meeting people the first time at the house? How about meeting people the first time utilizing a tour you've created? When I can go create a tour of a house in 9 minutes and 23 seconds, and as a result have both a tour and a floor plan that I can utilize to help someone understand that spatial relationship, what's preventing me from doing that? What is it? And so we're working with companies like Pillar to Post to take this a step further. How do you insert this technology to give the consumer sort of an augmented plus virtual reality experience? How do I incorporate the comments from that home inspection into a tour that allows them to see very, very specifically, these are where the problems occur? I can navigate using the floor plan, or I can go up and look at the comments and go find the context. Some receptacles have come loose. This is exactly where that's at. It cuts down on the back and forth of that home buyer in between when that home inspection takes place and when they move in, of having to go back into the house to see it and request. The efficiencies, this is what we're talking about. The back end efficiencies that are created. And this is the cool thing. You now take that and combine it with, take that home inspection and hand it off to a punch list where you know that you've got an accurate estimate and they can get those things fixed and get to the deal faster as a result of it. All of these things combine to do exactly what the opportunity entails. Reduce the friction and create a better experience for the consumer. See, this is the promise of technology. That's what it's supposed to be doing. And then the last, some of what's happened in the last 6 months is just, I use the word mind-blowing a lot, and I apologize if I overuse it, but I'm going to show you a couple of things today that's a carry-on from what we've talked about in the past that illustrates just how quickly these things are moving. And I believe natural language process, the ability for us to speak naturally to our computers and for our computers to speak back to us naturally, this is the holy grail of artificial intelligence. It is the Turing test. It is that, can I tell the difference between a computer and a human? Do I need to go that far in order for it to have incredible benefit? I don't think we do, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I think we do need to constantly have at the forefront of our brain, what are the technology companies hoping to accomplish as a result of it? What are we going to have to give up to get there? Will we give it up to get there? What privacy will we give up in order to get to the benefits, to the promises of these technologies. And so last year, Amazon set a very specific plan for how they wanted to see the Alexa devices, the Echo devices, basically run our entire lives. And if you stop and think about it, if you could afford a personal assistant who could sit beside you all day long and you could just bark commands to it, Alexa, can you buy me movie tickets for this movie for Friday night? And Alexa could go do that for you. But then come back and make a suggestion. I bought your movie tickets. Would you like a dinner reservation near the theater as well? I mean, if there was a human doing that for me, would I want that? I hate making those plans. I hate doing those things. I used to, when I sold my first company, I took over as a group president for a large public company. It was the first time in my life that I ever had a personal assistant. It was the greatest thing on earth. Who doesn't want a personal assistant? Your flight's been delayed by 40 minutes. You want me to change the arrival of your Uber? You know, when things return back to when I actually will take an Uber or when I can actually go to an airport. There's a Girl Scout selling cookies at your house. How do I know that? Because my Alexa device is hooked up to my Ring device or hooked up to my Kangaroo device, which is another one of our companies in this year's Reach class. It's hooked up to that device. It knows who's there. It knows what's happening. Why does it know? Because it's using artificial intelligence to analyze the image to know, oh, that's a Girl Scout selling cookies at your front door. See, when the world is connected together, and it is increasingly connected, every single day, more and more devices, every single day, more and more and more of what we're doing is being connected to the internet. The data that is being dumped into that system, the amount of learning that's taking place, the amount of control that we're giving to these systems increases on a daily basis. And the question isn't, is that going to continue? It is going to continue. We've already proven that we will give up our privacy for things that aren't even as valuable as what you're seeing on the screen. And when these devices become, because I know what you're saying, this sounds great, but I can't get Alexa to answer half my questions right. And that's because Alexa is not the most accurate, even today, of what's happening inside of this natural language understanding process. Google Assistant, 91%, Amazon Alexa, 34%. Google is winning this war. Google is winning this war in so many places, not only with the development of the massive intelligent AI systems that are just doing incredible things. They're winning it relative to every aspect of what it's going to take in order for us to speak to a computer and have that computer speak back to us. You've seen this before. In May of 2019, the CEO of Google stood on a stage and he introduced Google Duplex. This was in May of 2018. And in that demo, he had a computer with a female voice call a salon and book a hair appointment. And then he had a computer with a male voice call a restaurant where it was very, very difficult to understand the restaurant owner and book a restaurant. And the crowd went wild and there was screaming and it was, you know, it was amazing. Again, like magic. In my head, in the back of my mind, what I was thinking was, how much of that was faked? How much of that was, yes, the potential's there, but that's not really where it sits today. And the decision that they made for that technology was that the first thing that they were going to do was they were going to turn it loose on holidays. One of the biggest obstacles for small businesses, small local businesses on holidays is that they have to take time away from helping customers on a holiday to answer phone calls that are predominantly, are you open today? Are you open today? Are you open today? Because they haven't changed their Google business page to update for their holiday hours. And so Google decided what they would do is they'd make a single phone call, automated, with a computer talking to that store owner. Are you open today? Yes. What are your hours? When you open? When you close? And then taking that information and updating the Google page for them so that consumers searching on that day wouldn't have to call them. They would just know and they could go. Sounds great. But here's the thing. May of 2018, they announced that this was possible. Just 1 year later, in 2019, this is what this sounded like in the real world, like out in the real world.
Hello? Hello? Hi, I'm calling to make a reservation. I have Google automated booking service.
That's a computer.
Could I book a table for Tuesday the 21st? I'd like to make a reservation on that. Okay. Actually, how many people? It's for 10 people. 10 people? Okay, what time? 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Okay. I need a table for 7 p.m. Okay, 7 p.m. Okay.
I don't know about you, but even I have a hard time understanding some of what that restaurant owner is saying there. And the Google Assistant, again, this is a math equation. It's an algorithm with a human voice attached at the end of it. It's listening, processing, responding in real time on a call. And at the end of that call, that virtual assistant, that math equation recognizes that the restaurant owner has not asked for the name and corrects the restaurant owner so that he gets the name and finishes the reservation. It's mind-boggling. Again, it's mind-boggling to me. This is real today. Today, if you've got a phone that has Google Assistant app on it, if you tell that Google Assistant, please make me a reservation at X restaurant for 7 p.m. tonight, in 48 out of 50 states, only Kentucky and Louisiana are not currently included in the ability to do this. If that restaurant isn't connected to Open Door or one of the other automatic scheduling apps, which it can do automatically, and it happens almost instantly. If there's a 7 o'clock available, it'll book it at 7 o'clock. If it's not, it'll come back to you and say, there isn't a 7 o'clock. Do you want one of these other times? And you'll say yes, no, and it'll go. If it isn't connected, today, a computer will call that restaurant and make that reservation for you. That's happening today. And so how else is this being used? On that same day in 2018, they announced what they were calling WaveNet. And WaveNet is another Google project. It is the most powerful text-to-speech generator. At that demo, they showed how they mimicked John Legend's voice, and they were turning John Legend's voice into an Amazon Alexa voice that you could utilize, that could talk back to you in reality. Into a Google device that could talk back to you directly. But WaveNet is now available as an API to technology companies to utilize in producing text to voice. And so I want to show you, I just went in and into the demo that's available online and typed in some words. And I want you to hear what's possible today. Now, remember, this is what's possible today. At a doubling every 3.4 months, I have no idea what this is going to sound like in 4 months.
For all of you skeptics out there, this is an example of Google's most advanced text-to-speech capabilities. Notice the subtle variations in voice intonation. But can it handle a question? Most certainly. I think you'll agree. This is pretty impressive stuff. Imagine you and your family hosting parties in this expansive, modern kitchen. Enjoy summer days in the fully landscaped backyard.
Imagine you and your family hosting parties in this expansive, modern kitchen. Enjoy summer days in the fully landscaped backyard. Imagine you and your family hosting parties in this expansive, modern kitchen.
Imagine you and your family hosting parties in this expansive modern kitchen.
I tested French accents. I tested Italian accents. Listen, that's awesome. Now, what if your chatbot had your voice? When I first saw this technology 2 years ago, it was a concept. I remember when Lyrebird first came out with the test version that I could go in and start speaking a text into. And it sounded tinny, and there was little, you could tell that it was a computer voice. It sounded a little bit like me, but you could tell it was a computer voice. And in that moment, I thought they're doing that on purpose. They could actually do this better if they wanted to. And then Descript, which is a company that is a podcasting company, bought Lyrebird, and they teamed up together to create something called Overdub. And what Overdub was designed to do was, if you've ever done a video or you've ever done a podcast where you've said the wrong word, you've said the wrong number, you said the wrong year, but you don't want to have to go re-record it, they wanted to be able to mimic your voice in a way and to allow you to edit it so that you could just go in and change the text and have it change the speech. So here's an example of that working. This is live today.
My name is person, and I am Catherine. I'm Catherine's overdub voice. I created Catherine over 10 minutes of audio into Descript. Thank you. No, thank you. It's hard to express how grateful I am. Now I can edit my recordings as easily as I edit text. No, thank you. It's hard to tell you just how grateful. Now I can edit my recordings as easily as I edit text. Wait to see what we create together. I can't wait to see what we create together. I'm so happy I made you.
So they released Overdub in August, just last month, just a little over 4 weeks ago, and I couldn't resist. I immediately went and recorded 30 minutes of me reading The Wizard of Oz, which is the text that they give you to read in order to learn your voice. Now, I don't have a professional recording studio at my home. I have a very, very strong feeling that if I went into a professional recording studio with a professional mic and did the exact same thing, I think my results would be even better than they are. But what I'm about to show you is something else. So 2 weeks after they released Overdub into the wild, 2 weeks after I created my own synthetic voice, they released some stock voices. So it says September 2030 on the screen. If I had Overdub right now, I could just change that to 2020. But just literally, just 2 weeks ago, they released this. Listen to this. Now, I want you to hear my voice. This is my voice. What you're going to be hearing in this next demonstration is not actually my voice.
This is a demonstration of the amazing overdub feature of Descript, utilizing one of the stock voices as a surprise.
This is a demonstration of the amazing overdub feature of Descript, using my personalized voice. This is created from 30 minutes of my actual recorded voice.
Coming to a computer near you soon. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See, are we already there? I think we are. I actually think that some of what you're hearing in there that gives the sense that this might not be an actual human voice is there on purpose. I actually still think there's a tremendous amount of fear, as there should be. When we have the ability to mimic someone's voice, we're going to talk about fake news in a second. When we have the ability to do that, deep fakes in terms of video and vocalizations, we have to be incredibly careful. The unintended consequences are there, and it brings to light other things that we fear. This is what we fear, and I'm being told my audio might be too low, so I'll do the best that I can. Normally it's okay, but I want to make certain you hear this. This is what we fear. See, our fear is that we're going to make computers so smart that they'll stop listening to us, that they'll start doing their own thing, that they'll take over the world. I love this slide. I've used this slide so often. Even before computers were this smart, they'd already taken over the world. They'd already captured our attention. We are so affixed to it. We don't need to have natural language processing in order for us to pay attention to it. When we've shifted the vast majority of our conversations to text, when we end up spending the vast majority of our time staring at the little black box in our hands, it's already happened. And I want to encourage you all to go watch this. Please write this down. The Social Dilemma. I'm being told I have to wrap in 1 minute, even with, you know what, Lisa, I'm going to go a little longer because we had technical problems. The Social Dilemma. I'll speak really, really fast. On Netflix, it just came out last week. Please go watch it because it'll help you understand that what's happening is not just that Facebook is presenting us with information, that there is a direction that this is heading, and I think you need to be aware of it. And so OpenAI 2019, they released GPT-2, which was seen as this crazy thing that they didn't want to release. And people began using it to build examples of how it could write entire articles, but it was still not quite very good. And all of the different things that they thought might be possible with GPT-2 were amazing. Less than 6 months later, they released GPT-3. It's so good, it's ridiculous. It's 175 billion parameters compared to the 1.5 billion of GPT-2. And as a result, you get college students using this to write entirely fake blog posts, getting to the top of the Hacker News with blog posts that aren't even real. The Guardian had a robot write an article entirely with one assignment: convince my readers that robots come in peace. Hopefully I'll be able to get you this presentation so that you can read this and link to these articles and see it. This is amazing stuff. See, we don't have to have natural language processing. We are already attuned to a different way of learning. And so I want to skip through, since I only have a minute. We're seeing these advances on Google's side utilizing another form of this called BERT that they've already inserted into the Google search engines. And in the last 18 months, what's happened in transfer learning from these large-scale language models, it has improved on the state of art of pretty much every natural language processing task. And companies like Ylopo, that is in this year's REACH class, are using AI text-based automated ISAs in the real estate industry. Why shouldn't you be at a softball game with your kids and letting a virtual assistant, if you could do it with a human, you would? Why? You think you're not going to take advantage of the ability to answer the mundane questions that can be answered based upon information that's readily available to the computer, and only be asked to insert yourself when the conversation gets to the place where it really needs a realtor involved? You not only will, but you'll want to. This is the future of real estate technology. The ability for the consumer to talk to the computer and get answers back, the ability for you to do the same, and for the computer to talk to the consumer on your behalf. That's the future of real estate technology. And so what should you do? One, pay attention to the automation opportunities. Don't look at everything through a marketing lens, especially when it comes to virtual tours and documentation. Stay intensely focused on what your customer desires. And then the last thing, please get involved in emerging real estate technology. We have so many opportunities with Reach and Second Century Ventures, either through the polling we do and the surveys we do, and your ability to get involved in looking at the companies that we've specifically gone out and vetted to be a part of this Reach program, companies that are centered 100% on making certain that the realtor stays at the center of the transaction. This is what we do. I think the future is already automated, and I think the future of real estate technology is going to be mind-blowing.